Republicans are expected to dominate the Senate in the 2024 elections. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis that is not beholden to any mainstream media outlet. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so, I created a Senate model for 2018 that practically allows me to get a somewhat relatively close result to that election. The only states I get wrong here are Montana, West Virginia, and Florida. And again, Senate election models are a lot more difficult to construct than, presidential elections because of the fact that each race has its own unique factors. More than likely, as I'm updating this Senate model, I will probably be incorporating the favorability numbers for some of the incumbents to allow for more accuracy. But we can see here that the model is not horribly wrong. Republicans do finish out with 53 seats to Democrats 47 seats here. I believe I have the Democrats about 53 to 47 here as well. So I essentially get the seat count correct, but the only two states that I essentially get wrong, or technically three, is Florida, West Virginia, and Montana. And really the only state where I actually have like a ridiculously bad miss is in West Virginia and Florida. And to an extent, Montana, I mean, they're just equally as bad, but every other state essentially is somewhat close to the real result. For whatever reason, in my 2018 model, in the Republican winning states, I underestimate the Democrat, or in the Republican winning states, I underestimate the Republican. It's a little bit strange, but either way, when looking at the model, it's somewhat feasible of a model to apply to the 2024 Senate map, because in 2018 it was somewhat successful in at least predicting who was going to win the Senate and giving a general idea of which seats were going to go which way. Rick Scott has this kind of curse where he always is expected to lose, and then he ends up winning his race by the narrowest of margins. Texas and Montana were essentially tied in their races there. So, and that Montana race was slightly harder to predict back in 2018 just because of the fact that, yes, the state had gotten a lot redder, but Tester was the incumbent. So it was a little bit iffy. Same thing for West Virginia. But, right now, Republicans 53 to 47, that was the seat coalition back in 2018. And so when looking at the new map right now, we got a lot of new interesting developments in some of these seats. For the safe Republican states, we got Utah here. We're going to be going down to the state of Utah, and we will see that the Republican is expected to win by 28 points in that seat. Wyoming, fairly comfortable win there, about 45 points in Wyoming. North Dakota, another super easy win of about 29 points. So that is a vast improvement from the 11-point victory Kramer won by back in 2018 when he defeated the incumbent Heidkamp. And we look at more safe Republican states. We can move on to some of these extra states. For example, the Nebraska special election alongside Mississippi, those are going to be in the safe Republican column as of right now. We can also see Tennessee is also in that safe column as well. West Virginia only a 21-point win. Now, this may actually underestimate the Republican candidate because Manchin is no longer the candidate there. And so because of that, you may actually see a little bit of iffiness in that seat. I probably expect the Republican to outperform the margin that I have with the model as of right now. Looking for more safe Republican states, we can see here that's actually about it for all of the safe Republican states on this map. It is just these seats that I have filled out, which gets Republicans to 45. Looking at the safe Democrat seats, we got California at roughly about 19 points. And right now we see that Kamala is expected to win by 20. So it seems like Adam Schiff is projected to actually underperform Kamala Harris in the Senate election. Hawaii seems like a somewhat easy victory for the Democrat, about a 20-point win. So they're going to be outperforming Kamala Harris by quite a bit in this matchup. We can move on to some other safe Democrat states. Delaware is another safe Democrat seat in the Senate. We can also add Maine at large at about 22 points for Angus King. He is technically an independent. He always wins his election by ridiculously large margins, and he is polling especially really good right now. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if he ends up outperforming his polling as of right now, or at least outperforming his last win in 2018, where he actually won by about 19 points. Looking at Vermont, that's going to be in the safe column. Bernie Sanders, I expect to win re-election very easily. Kamala Harris will underperform Bernie Sanders. Rhode Island, another decent win for the Democrat candidate. Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren's expected to only win by 21, which is around where the polling is. And in Maryland, about a 21-point win for also Brooks is there. Yes, she's starting to actually gain ground in the polling right now, and it is under 10, but I do expect Kamala Harris to carry over the Democrat in that race. And we actually see that Kamala Harris ends up outperforming the Senate candidate, so Hogan does outperform Donald Trump at the state level in Maryland, but not by the amount that people think they do, because I have developed correlation weights for every single state you can see right here based on the 2016 and 2020 results, and the seat results don't necessarily split that off from each other depending on what race you're looking at. Usually, the candidate does not outperform that much. The only state that really has a large amount of ticket splitting is Maine at large. That's really the only state that has a large amount of ticket splitting, and you see it right here. I mean, Kamala Harris is narrowly up in Maine at large, and then you see here here you clearly see a 22-point win for Angus King, so very, very interesting. We can keep going. New York, about a 19-point win. So the Democrats going to outperform Kamala Harris in the seat by quite a bit. Kamala Harris is definitely going to be underperforming as well. And in Washington, you see Kamala Harris win by 10 and the Democrats up by a little bit over 15. This Democrat does actually end up always underperforming expectations, but this is actually one of the times where she's going to actually outperform the top of the ticket at the presidential level. Just goes to show you how much of a weakness Harris has as a top of the ticket candidate. Going into the likely Republican states, we have Montana here, so this one's not even a competitive race. An 8-point win for Tim Sheehy in that race. He's probably going to end up winning that race by about 8 points. Nebraska's main election is only a 12-point win, which sounds strange, but they're not even running a Democrat there. They're actually running an independent candidate who's actually polling pretty tight there, but Nebraska polling always tends to oversample independent voters and always oversamples Democrats. And so because of that, we are seeing here reflected in the model that, yes, she is going to underperform Trump at the state level by quite a bit. There are going to be a lot of Trump Osborne voters, but she will still hold on by over 10 points in this seat as of right now. Missouri is another race. We could see right here a 12.5-point win for Josh Hawley, which is pretty good for him because he only won by 6 back in 2018. So he will, again, underperform Donald Trump, but he will still end up winning that seat fairly easily. And looking at Indiana, a 13-point win, so another underperformance from the Republican compared to Trump, but we do see that Donald Trump is helping them win by double digits in some of these races. Ohio, another likely Republican seat. Yes, guys, a likely Republican seat is here in Ohio. About a 9-point race in the state of Ohio. Donald Trump winning the state by over 15 will cause Moreno to essentially win by over 5 points in this race. Texas, around a similar margin. Ted Cruz is going to be winning the state by a decent amount, although he will be underperforming Trump by quite a significant amount in the state. Donald Trump's going to be running a lot better with Hispanic voters and African Americans than he is, than some of the Senate candidates are. You're going to see a lot of African Americans and Hispanics that come out just to vote for Trump, or they will probably end up splitting the ticket with the Democrat. Kind of depends. I expect a lot of first-time or not frequent voters that come out specifically for Donald Trump that cause him to outperform here. So that's kind of what's causing that. Looking at Florida, another likely state, we see that Rick Scott's projected win by 10, and Donald Trump's up in the state by around 12. points as of right now. So that's kind of what we're looking at in Florida. Now, looking here to some of the likely Democrat states, we have Minnesota at 14 points for Amy Klobuchar. She tends to outperform pretty heavily in the seat. She's kind of an electoral juggernaut, but despite that, she's going to win by less than 15 just because of how bad Kamala Harris is actually doing at the state level. So she's going to outperform Kamala Harris by a pretty decent amount in the state. Connecticut, another seat, a 13-point win there. And in New Jersey, the Democrats expected to win by about 9 points there, give or take. And Kamala's only up by 7. So she is going to underperform the Senate candidate there. So you're seeing a trend here. A lot of the candidates in the Democrat states are underperforming Kamala Harris, or outperforming Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump's outrunning some Republicans. So it's kind of interesting to see that Donald Trump really is outrunning a lot of these Republican candidates, and Kamala Harris is underperforming some of the Senate candidates in this matchup. Looking at New Mexico, this is another interesting state, a 9-point win. They are running a pretty good Republican candidate, but I just can't see that race getting closer, despite Donald Trump actually only losing the state by around 2 points there. And you see Hung Kao, he's expected to basically go down by around 11 points in this forecast. However, I do actually expect this to be way closer than what people are making this out to be. I do expect him to outperform this margin by a pretty decent amount. And looking at the major swing states for the Senate races, that being Nevada, Arizona, and the Rust Belt, our first projection is going to be Nevada. It seems like Sam Brown really isn't getting any funding. The top of the ticket tends to, at least Democrats tend to perform a lot better in Nevada at the Senate level than Republicans do per se. And so that's why we are going to see Jackie Rosen, a somewhat popular incumbent in Nevada, probably hold on, especially against the Sam Brown, who literally is not getting any funding from the RNC. Now, is he ruled out? Definitely not. He could still win that race, but more than likely, I suspect that he will go down. Now, on the contrary, this is a pretty big hot take, but my model does have Kari Lake winning the race quite easily, actually, about 4 points, and she will underperform Donald Trump, but not by as much as people were thinking, and he is currently winning the race by around 5.5 in Arizona, so that's where we're kind of seeing that. And in the Rust Belt here, it's pretty interesting, but we do see a little bit of a discrepancy where Eric Hovde is actually expected to win Wisconsin by almost the same margin that Kari Lake is winning the Arizona seat by, but we see in Michigan and Pennsylvania, the Democrat senator candidates will actually hold on. It seems like Alyssa Slotkin will probably hold on in Michigan by 2.3%, and in Pennsylvania, the Democrat candidate Bob Casey, the incumbent, just holds on by a point. Now, this can be subject to change. We will be going through the model and making some improvements. And again, the 2018 base model is somewhat decent. It's not perfect, definitely not perfect, but it's a lot better than what a lot of people could have produced back then, and actually does overestimate Democrats in some races and does overestimate Republicans in some races. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Senate races are a lot harder to predict because you have 2 different candidates on the ballot every single time. But the good news is, in a presidential race, you can kind of generalize and use your top of the ticket prediction to kind of help your Senate forecast, because the top of the ticket in presidential years does tend to influence the race quite a bit at that level. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button, to subscribe, and comment down your thoughts down below. And make sure to go ahead and go to betonline.com, where we actually do see right here a politics section where you can actually bet on the US Senate election. So make sure to go ahead and do that as well. And I will see you guys in the next video.